Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grimm Show. I am the Dude.
And I'm Grimm. And today we are going to talk about what some people would refer to as the forgotten album by a little band called Pink Floyd, and that is Animals. And I know this is kind of a sacrilege. People are like, dude, you can't wear the shirt of the band that you're going to see, but we're just talking about them. So I felt that because I don't have the vinyl of Animals to hold up, shame on me. That's
I do have it.
Yeah, that's
Just
kind of Bush League, but I just haven't got the remastered one yet. Dude, the remastered vinyls are expensive, man, and I'm on a fixed income here. So
yeah, dude, it was I think
like
it was
$30 or something, isn't it?
It was at least $30, and this is just like a single disc. I mean, which is nice.
Yeah, and I know it's going to be
just a single
$30,
disc,
well worth it, but I mean, it's, you know, when you're at the record store and there's like all these ones you want, I'm like, oh, I could almost get two for that.
I guess it's why it's the forgotten album.
I haven't forgot about it, though. It's been a mainstay since it was introduced to me in high school. And actually, my friend Becky Redham, her mom bought me this album because it was one of her favorite albums. So, yeah, Lisa Redham, I mean, kudos to you for hooking me up with this album. And she had told me about going to see them on the Animals tour, which I think would have been amazing.
Fuck me.
And yeah, I know. I know.
Come on.
And the inflatable pig going around the audience and all that. But we'll get into the tour. But for now, just kind of the album itself.
Well, for now, Grimm, I think what we really want to do is we want to remind people to like, subscribe, and comment below.
Please do.
That would be great. Just hit the button. It's so easy. Like, it's so easy. It's even big. It's red. It's got a triangle. Just do it. Awesome. Well, Grimm, Animals is, for those people who maybe not as familiar with Pink Floyd, but this is actually their 10th studio album. Like, that's pretty crazy to think that they had 10. Now, there are some that I'm sure some people aren't quite as familiar with. I mean, the majority of people are familiar with Dark Side, followed by Wish You Were Here, then Animals, and then The Wall. Some of the previous ones you had, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Saucer Full of Secrets, Amagama. Yeah. But then the ones where...
Dude, Obscured by Clouds, though.
Yeah.
More.
I think we're the catalog.
That's where the band got its name from.
That's where the band got its name. ... Well, I think for us, at least for me, where their catalog really starts is like Obscured by Clouds, Metal, Dark Side.
And pretty much Obscured by Clouds. Yeah. I do like some of the stuff off Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I mean, there's some good things on all their albums, but some of it is just like psychedelic noodling.
That's pretty much how
I don't feel that way with Obscured by Clouds. I feel like even though it was done as a soundtrack, that was an album, and there's really good songs on it.
There's songs on there, man. Yeah, there's some good shit on there. Good shit. Well, but here today we are here to talk about Animals. Now, Animals is kind of an interesting album. It is similar to Wish You Were Here in the sense that it has 5 tracks. However, 2 of the tracks are fairly short, and then in the middle it's got 3 long tracks. Now, Pink Floyd has never been a stranger to longer songs. No, but Dogs comes in at like 17 minutes.
And it's funny because it's like the opposite of Wish You Were Here in a way, because that has the long bookends and then shorter tracks in the middle. With this has the little bookends.
Yeah.
Very astute, my dude.
But, you had Echo. I mean, they, like you said, with the Shine Ons, those are running at probably about 12, 13 minutes. Yeah. I think Echoes is 20 something. Echoes took up the whole side of like the second half of Metal. So they had done long tracks before. That was kind of nothing really.
We forgot Adam Hart Mother, dude.
Oh, and Adam Hart Mother.
Oh, cool yeah. But anyways, I know what you mean.
In 2 of these songs they had been playing on the Wish You Were Here tour, which were it was Dogs and then it was Dogs and Sheep.
But, really? Okay.
Yeah, but Dogs was called You Gotta Be Crazy, and Sheep at the time was called Raving and Drooling.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, spitting, but yeah.
And so here's the thing, like on I don't know what it's on Spotify, but I downloaded at one point or purchased a deluxe edition of Wish You Were Here. And now it's not on Apple Music anymore, but I still I purchased it on Apple Music, and then now it's gone for some reason.
Yeah.
But they have Raving and Drooling, and they have You Gotta Be Crazy, which are live, which are the early versions of those songs. And I gotta tell you, they're badass. I would highly recommend like getting if you can find that deluxe edition, because the disc 2 of the special edition of Wish You Were Here has Shine On parts 1 through, it says 1 through 6. But then Raving and Drooling, You Gotta Be Crazy. And then there's that song, The Wine Glasses, from the Household Objects Project. But anyways,
I consider myself a pretty big Pink Floyd fan, and I don't know about that one.
Yeah. So if you are a big Floyd fan and you don't have these, look for Raving and Drooling and You Gotta Be Crazy, because those are 2 songs off this album. So highly recommend.
Well, I want to talk about, I guess, before we get into there's a couple things I think before you get into the music. Number one is the visual look of the album. And they went to photograph on a few different occasions, do the photographs at Battersea Power Station. And they had this big inflatable pig, right? And
Yes.
The way I understood it is that somebody had said to them, it'd probably be easier just to superimpose the pig. And of course they were like, no, we want to do a real photograph of it.
Before the days of Photoshop, but still, we can do it.
You can do it, yeah. So they tried to do it, and I don't know if it was the second day, but at one point the pig got loose and it floated away and floated over Heathrow Airport, a major international airport. And some pilots freaked out, some flights got canceled, and it
was a big deal.
Yeah, all hell kind of broke loose, and then the pig eventually crashed down in some sort of a farm, and then the farmer got pissed off because it was like scaring his cows. So, which ironically, no song called "Cows" on this. So
there should have been. It should have inspired. Well, it was already after the album was done, I think, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, it's funny. You're right, because they did go on 3 separate days, and on the first day they brought like a marksman there.
And they were gonna shoot it, right?
Yeah, but then on the second day they're like, we don't really need them. And guess what? You did.
Yeah.
And that's when the pig escaped, and it kind of got into Heathrow's airspace. They had to cancel flights, and it was not good. Then they go back the third day. The picture, like the pig was fine. Picture turned out fine and everything, except they didn't like the picture because it didn't have the clouds and the atmosphere that Day One had, which if you've seen the cover of this album, and I wish we could hold it up right now.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. So what did they end up doing? They ended up superimposing the pig from the Day One.
Hey, fucking superimposed it, man. Yeah, they
Superimpose
fucking superimposed me.
It's fine. You can do anything these days. So the cover is pretty badass. But at this time, now we just said this is their 10th album. It was released in 1977, January 21st, 1977. They spent I think they took 1976 pretty much off from touring. I think that was the only year that they didn't even play like one live show, actually.
Huh.
And they spent basically recording this album. Now, they had been known to take a lot of time in the studio, and that's kind of the deal that they had with EMI. EMI was, hey, you give us unlimited studio space and we'll reduce kind of our percentage take of the sales. All right, that's cool. Well, in this case, their deal with EMI had expired, so they were out on their own. And, when you had albums like Dark Side and Wish You Were Here, their touring production was huge for their live shows. They had tons of stuff going on. They were a very visual band, and then all the equipment that they needed. So they ended up basically buying this huge warehouse. And what is it, Britannia Row? That's what it is. And so they end up not only turning that basically into a storage warehouse for all their extra equipment and shit, but they built their studio in there. Apparently it took like most of 1975 to like build a studio, or a good amount of time. Now that's why, I mean, I guess it's different, Grimm, today, because you can just probably go down to the store. You just go on Guitar Center's website, you order a bunch of shit you need. You could probably next day that, and you spend a long weekend, put it together or something. I mean, obviously you're building consoles and things. Okay,
yeah.
In all fairness, it would be more than that, but back
their
then,
version's
man,
a little more pro than what we're looking around at here. But
Well,
yeah, I know what you mean. With enough people and enough resources, it shouldn't be that insane.
especially when you're one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah, you should be able to pull that off.
But bands were, I mean, we even talked about that, and I think in our episode on the White Album, link it below, thanks Forrest, is basically, even the Beatles, it wasn't a thing for bands to kind of build their own studios at this point. They were still going in
this may have been one of the first instances
to
of
record.
that.
Yeah, I mean, we had the Stones. We've talked about them with Exile on Main Street and some of their stuff. They've, people did go into mansions and houses and kind of have mobile recording studios. But as far as like just one big studio where that band went, I imagine they were one of the first. And one of the thought processes was, hey, while we're not using it, other bands can come in here, record, and that's another revenue stream for us, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, if the work of Pink Floyd is, if you figure, well, this can come out of there, I mean,
yeah.
Now, so, okay, aside from that, and there was some struggles within the band. I know that you kind of read a little more in depth, El Duderino, about like some of the royalty splits, which led to some problems. Rick Wright, I think, was not in a good place and ended up being fired 2 years later to be brought back for The Wall.
Yeah, I don't know if it was I don't know what it was. Did he get kicked out, I think, during The Wall or part of The Wall?
Well, there was that too, yeah.
Was,
and then at that point, the whole band split after that. Yeah. Because I think on the final cut, it was everybody but Waters.
I thought it was. Or
was that everyone but Wright?
I thought it was Waters. It was, but like David Gilmour, from what I read for the final cut, he put like one little. It was basically just Waters, and Wright wasn't in it. Else. I think Gilmour put in like one little part, and then everybody else was. It was kind of like he brought in some studio musicians and all that stuff. That's just a brief little snippet of what I read earlier today.
So I guess you can say that this, in a way, was kind of the beginning of what would be the end. I mean, really. Yeah,
I mean. Well, so here's the deal. What's the deal? Song off Obscured by Clouds. Good one. The majority of the songs, and we'll talk about these, are Roger Waters songs, and. Part of the reason for that is David Gilmour, actually, he just had his firstborn child. He was kind of focused on that. Waters, it was always him and Gilmour, they were major driving forces, but it took Gilmour a lot longer to write songs and come up with stuff from what I've heard. So it seems like Waters would, had more ideas and more things.
A little more prolific.
He was a little more of the driving force. And if you look at the writing credits, he wrote every song on here except Dogs, which he shares co-writing credits. Now, I read a couple different things. Like I heard that David Gilmour said he wrote, I think, like 90% of Dogs, which is like a 17-minute song. But then at the same time, I think Waters wrote all the lyrics. So I'm not sure exactly how you split that up. But between them, in the way they kind of had their, I guess, the royalties, I don't know if that's how you want to call it, kind of worked out, it was like a percentage per song. So we got Pigs on the Wing, which is split up into two parts, and they're like, what, a minute and a half each?
Yeah.
And then you have Dogs, which is 17 minutes. Well, they don't take in consideration
how long the song is.
How long
right?
the song is.
Yeah.
It's per track.
Yeah.
So basically, Waters is getting royalties for 4 songs in full, and then half of Dogs, and Gilmour's only getting half a Dogs.
Yeah, sure.
And Gilmour's like, dude, that song is like half the album. Like, what are you talking about? But that's what the deal was, and he really couldn't do anything about it. So it's money, man. It's money. Everything kind of You know,
Yeah,
a lot of those
money.
things I think split them apart. You know, different than kind of how the Beatles split apart, but
a lot
at the
of
same
great
time,
music got ruined by money.
yeah. At the same time, though, when you compare like these two bands, and obviously there's major differences, but they had been together for a long time, through a huge part of their career, and naturally musicians are going to want to get out, branch out, and do their own things, and I think that's kind of what happened here.
Well, that's interesting, and the album was pretty commercially successful. I mean, what did it say? Number 2 in the UK and 3 in the United States. That's that's really good.
At this point in 1977, Pink Floyd, other than probably Led Zeppelin and the Who, still just like the biggest
but there were some other bands out there. But here's what you got to understand, though, in that I think I watched a video put out by a guy called the Vinyl Rewind on YouTube, and he does
which is really good.
Did
stuff,
an excellent job talking about this album and everything that went with it. And one thing that he brought up that I guess I didn't realize, not having read too in depth on it, just listening to it for many years, was that in 77, you're talking about like punk is coming out. And the punks saw Pink Floyd as like an establishment band. Like they did not relate to them at all. They saw them as rich and like elitists. They could build their own fucking studio. These guys are like living in the gutter. Yeah, and so they did not like Pink Floyd and actively rejected them because of what they symbolized, which was interesting because this whole album is kind of a commentary on society in the framework of George Orwell's Animal Farm book, right? And one thing I thought was funny is that later, I guess Nick Mason went on to produce the second album by The Damned called Music for Pleasure, which is not as good as their first album, but I will say there's some pretty good stuff on there. And I think that's interesting that he went on to produce like a pretty like influential punk band, their second album.
Well, Mason did also say, and this makes a lot of sense too, is that if you think about what was this 1977, the punk scene's coming up. It's very underground at that point. Well, let's go back to, late 60s, maybe 67, where Pink Floyd was, the psychedelic underground music scene.
Sure.
Where they were the up and comers, right? They were the ones, they were doing exactly what like the Sex Pistols and those types of bands were doing just 10 years earlier.
In a different framework,
And they made it big. And it's one of those things, man. It's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a slippery slope. They did become these elitists because they became these huge rock stars because they created this, music that sold. I think aside from that, though, like if you just take the music for how it sounds, I think that a lot of these folks in the punk scene are I believe the term used is dinosaur rock. Sure.
Because think about like Pink Floyd's Animals versus like early punk from Britain. It's slow. It's dark. It's everything. Now,
a 17-minute song.
Yeah, it's everything that they weren't. So they looked at him as like, man, fuck these, like get out of the way. But
absolutely.
I also have read that in later times, I believe it was Johnny Rotten was like there was a photo of him wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt and he penned over it like I hate Pink Floyd. But I think that he in later years has said like he was just like poking fun and of course.
We're just joking.
Which makes. But I get why you would rebel against that, because if like the punk scene is your life, Animals is pretty fucking far from that.
Yeah, anything that's popular and cool and that people like, especially an older generation likes, the younger generation is going to push back against that.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, dude, it reminds me, remember in the 60s documentary, Jerry Garcia's up on stage and the crowd is like yelling at him and they're just saying, oh, you just want your money. You just want your money, which, a band like the Grateful Dead is just kind of like so, non-materialistic at the same time.
Yeah.
You have to become part of the machine. Like, welcome to the machine, right?
Yeah.
There's no way to do what you want to do, because here's the thing. If you're going out there and putting music out there and touring and making yourself known, if you're not getting the money for it, then somebody else who has absolutely nothing to do with it is.
Yeah. And fuck them even more.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like in sports. It's like,
and the thing too is everyone's got to make a living.
Yeah.
And I think that people, I think it's easy to forget that, and I've been guilty of saying this too, because I've played in bands locally and all this stuff. And I'm like, God, it must be nice. You just go on tour and somebody sets your shit up and you basically just get to walk on and like play and do the good parts of it. But there's still, dude, you don't have a quote unquote normal life. You're always on the road. Where do you call home? When can you call it home? Do you have a family? Like how well do you know them? I mean, there is a give and take with everything. And there is sure as hell is a give and take with someone who is a professional touring musician, whether or not they make millions of dollars doing it or not. I mean, there is a downside to that.
Sure. I mean, think about it, dude. I mean, think about when our podcast blows up. And all of a sudden, we have our own studio.
Dude, I already get recognized too much. For God's sakes.
I know. It's crazy. Just please stop it. Okay, please. We have our own studio. It's going to be professionally shot. We're going to have some cool, like, wipe transitions, some computer graphics, like, floating over the screen. It's going to be dope. We're not there yet. In fact, we're about 3,000 hours and about, 850 subscribers away from even monetizing videos.
But yeah. I was going to say 850,000 subscribers. we are
on our way. So
yeah, dude.
Please don't hate us. We want this to be our jobs. Anyways, moving on. So, I'm not even sure exactly where we go from here.
Well, I think at this point, this is kind of like the background bit. And the only thing I think that could be discussed at this point maybe is how there was already tension within the group, and then going out on tour kind of fueled that even more. It got to the point where like Waters wouldn't show up to the gigs with the rest of the band and would kind of
leave right after the shows.
Split immediately afterward and spit on an audience member. And as I read it, he made a comment to I guess their producer Bob Ezrin. Mm-hmm. That like he just felt this huge sense of alienation, even with like the crowds who came to see him, and that it would be sweet to like build a wall between him and the audience. So therein begins the writing for the iconic album, The Wall.
The Wall. Yes. Yeah. And that's a trippy story. And we don't need to go into all of that, but, the Vinyl Review? Like they do a really good job of telling the story.
Yeah,
I think they might even have some audio clips.
They do, and that's what seriously impressed. Like I thought, Vinyl Rewind. I thought he did such a good job at just telling the story and having all his ducks in a row in terms of facts. But then to be able to pull out like audio clips from the shows, I was like, dude, you win. Like, good
Deep
for you.
Dive.
That's
dive.
Awesome. But yeah, he had clips of some confrontational moments between the audience, and sounds like it got a little weird a couple times.
Well, he was a little pissed too, because I think one thing, like I think part of the tour was around 4th of July in the US, and the people were shooting off fireworks and stuff, and it just became and then people started doing it at all the shows, and he was trying to play, it was some song, and then they kept interrupting him, and it was like a whole thing. So
it's the whole thing, man.
It's the whole thing. The whole thing, man. Well, we're about ready then. I mean, we got 5 tracks to get through.
Yeah, I know. But there's a lot. See, that's the thing. It's either 5 tracks or 11 or 14 or whatever. But with these 5, there's a lot to talk about.
A lot. Yes, I think you freaky, and I like you a lot. So let's start with Pigs on the Wing Part 1. Now, the thing with that is it actually, Pigs on the Wing, I believe, was one track song initially, and they split it up.
Just like, and I read that, Crazy Diamond, man.
And yeah, except it would have been, dude, even if they would kept it as one song, it still would have been really, really short. But the trippy thing is on the 8 track, I heard that it has a solo from this dude, Snowy White.
No, that's Pigs, isn't it? I think that's Pigs.
Pigs on the Wing.
Oh, is it?
Pretty sure.
Then that's my fault. I apologize. We need a sound effect for that. I fucked up.
Dude, are you fucking this up?
Oh, God, if we could only pull that out.
Yeah, so here's the deal with that.
Snowy White.
Well, what happened
actually makes more sense than with Pigs 3 different ones.
It does, yeah. So what happened is they were actually in the recording studio during this song, and Snowy White came to visit because they wanted him to play on their
tour
upcoming on tour. And I guess Waters and Nick Mason were in the studio, and they accidentally deleted a solo that Gilmore had put in for this song. And so they just said, hey, Snowy White, do you want to put in the solo? So he goes in, he puts in the solo, whatever. Now, in the final version, the song gets split up on the record that the record that most of us have.
Yeah,
and
I'm listening.
And it is pretty much just Waters and the acoustic guitar. But my understanding is that on the 8 track, the way an 8 track work is you could actually loop it, and so there's some sort of a solo or thing at the end where it would just, when it got to part 2, it would go right back into part 1. And it would just kind of sound like a little. I don't know. That's just kind of what it's saying here. But it was some kind of feature, so it just sounded like you could just play the album sort of in a constant loop.
That's cool. I would actually like to hear that version. I think that would be cool. Well, I would think
there's a way you can get it.
Yeah, I bet on nowadays someone's released it on YouTube. Somebody has that and they put it on YouTube.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna look for it. But dude, I mean, look it up.
Look it up. But this is a
sound effect. Look it up.
This is an interesting song because it's a very short song, but it's also a love song, and they don't, at least from my memory, they weren't really known for love songs towards, I guess, women a lot of the time. I mean, Wish You Were Here is more about, it's like this love for Syd Barrett and wanting him, that kind of stuff. But this is a pretty direct love song, and I forget the woman's name. It was his girlfriend or wife.
Pigs on the Wing, 8-track version.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Son of a bitch. But I'm not going to listen to it right now, but I'm going to listen to it at some point here. I'm going to leave this up because I think it's really neat.
It's neat. It's so cool.
So it's on YouTube. Just look up Pigs on the Wing 8-track version.
Dope. That's awesome, man. Really should
have. A love song.
Done our homework. No.
Sorry.
A love song. It's just a neat little, a minute and 25 seconds. And this is just part 1. And it kind of, like you said, it's the bookends, right?
Yeah.
The first bookend.
But I like the context of how they write this as a love song, because it's basically, it's like saying, well, what if we weren't if we weren't together? Like this is kind of where we would be at. It's just a different approach to that.
It is. It's very different. And I think we can, once we get into the second bookend, we can talk about how that is sort of phrased, because they're very identical songs, but with different lyrics phrased a little different.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that is a really cool distinction there.
I do. Yeah.
Now I think we can move into Dogs. Mm-hmm. Can we move into Dogs? Move into Dogs. And like I said, it was originally called You Gotta Be Crazy. But then once once they kind of
came up with the animals theme,
and the George Orwell,
well, and that's
changed the lyrics and titles.
What I think we should kind of touch on a little bit, because as far as I understand it, you have basically 3 characters here: dogs, pigs, and sheep. So the dogs are like these. I feel like the dogs are like their real classification of like capitalism. It's like those who will do what they need to do to get to the top, no matter how shrewd, no matter how fucked up or underhanded it is. And the lyrics really point to that. Like,
absolutely.
And then you have the pigs, which I take the pigs to be like old money. Like people who were born into money, they're never going to be poor. They don't really have anything to worry about. Probably don't have a lot of skills, like 3rd generation rich family people.
Like, what does he say in Rushmore when he's giving the speech? He was, you were born rich and you were going to stay rich.
Yeah,
right?
And, and the sheep are just the mindless followers.
Yes.
So with that context, going to
aim
dogs.
for the rich kids.
Yep, aim for the rich kids. And I think, like I was saying, what I said, I think holds true. If you read the lyrics of dogs, you got to be crazy. You got to have a real need. You got to sleep on your toes when you're on the street.
Able to pick up the easy meat with your eyes.
You got to strike when the moment is right without thinking. And after a while, you can work on the points for style, like well, they say the club tie and the firm handshake. But to me, that means like the class. But you got to get there first. You got to get there first.
And you're basically going to do whatever you have to do to get there, right? I think it's described as sort of like the ruthless businessman. And it's, this sings about, he sings about lies, backstabbing, striking when the moment's right. Like it's, doing whatever you're going to need to do to get on top. And that's essentially, what it is.
After the first instrumental section, to me, verse 3 is where I really, and when you lose control, you reap the harvest you have sown. And as the fear grows, the bad blood slows and turns to stone. But I think the best line for me is, and it's too late to lose the weight you used to need to throw around. I mean, dude, damn.
That is so good to me. And I know obviously this was written in 77 with the person that really resonated. Well, obviously it could be a big trump, but dude, Harvey Weinstein too. Like,
oh wow.
Because he fucking preyed on so many people and so many women and had people's careers in their hands. And you know what? Shit ain't looking too good now, is it, Harvey? No, it's not. So have fun with your cellmate, even though you probably
But I feel like the only person that I've heard make a line that good and rhyme that well and use the words that well is Chris Christopherson. Like he's the only other person who I think could write a line that good. And it's too late to lose the weight she used to need to throw around because now you're just a fat old man and there's like not a goddamn thing you can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like good luck, bro. Good luck. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Dude, this song to me it's one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs. I'm trying to, if I had to put a list together, obviously, Shiny Crazy Diamond, Welcome to the Machine.
It'd be like top 5, I think.
Yeah, this one's definitely top 5 for me for sure. I mean, I love the way the guitar, the acoustic just slowly fades in. But even like I swear it's doubled.
It is. It absolutely is. And the use of the synthesizer, like juxtaposing the guitar, is really good. And I think that the synthesizer is used in such a cool way in this album. And then the vocoder.
Yeah, the vocoder.
Because I don't think you hear the talk box until Pigs, but the vocoder is really interesting in here. And what the vocoder is it's basically a machine that was set up to manipulate the human voice. So the way it's used in here is kind of like Moog made a good vocoder for example. And I know there's a lot of other synthesizer companies that do now, but I'm thinking of back, Moog made a really good one. And it basically takes the human voice and it mixes it with the synthesizer so that like the voice kind of sticks on the notes that you play on the synthesizer, but the notes are like triggered by the human voice. So it's like this weird, but you can, and they do that with the dogs barking. You can hear it with the dogs barking, you know, and that's a really neat way to do that because it's like word painting at its finest, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I was going to say is that I find with this album, especially with this song and dogs, and then we got the pigs and the sheep, there are times where you, in this you just perfectly explained it. I'm sure that's what it is. There's times where I can't tell if it's some sort of a synth or if it's the actual real sound, but it actually sounds like it's both. And I love it. And it really stands out kind of in that, in dogs, sort of in one of the middle sections. It's a 17-minute song, so there's a few middle sections.
You know the part you're talking about, and I know the part you're talking about. And I think the thing is with the vocoder, at least with the way that Moog made it, they made a 16-channel one. So it's like they kind of break up the frequency range into sections. So you could take the dogs barking, for example, and say, okay, well, the real effective frequencies here are between like 500 and 1,000 and plug those in so that those are triggering it more than anything else, right? And they do use that more throughout, but that to me, the dogs barking is the most like palatable example of how they use that in such a cool way.
Yeah. Well, the other part of this song that is I think my favorite part of the song is how during one of the sections right at the end when David Gilmour, he says the word, at the end, stone.
Yeah, and it just repeats.
And it echoes and it repeats, but then the way it evolves and morphs into this like alarm sound. It just sounds like an alarm.
Well, so not to get nerdy, but that's another thing with if you had tape delay, or I have a digital delay pedal, but I actually have an analog delay pedal, but what it does is you can, if you have the signal, if there's enough space in the delay so it doesn't just go right, and there's enough space to do that repeat, it gets into what's called self-oscillation. And so the sound keeps repeating enough that it morphs into its own sound because it's made so many repetitions that some of that initial like diction is gone. And like you said, it's almost like an alarm because you're only getting right portions, because the thing is, this would have been done on a tape machine. And the thing is, you do that loop enough, there is just degradation in the tape. And even with an analog delay like I have, if it goes for long enough, if you have it on an infinite loop, it's not digital. So there's always degradation in the signal. And it becomes something else. And that's what they call self-oscillation, where it's like this one phrase or something got repeated enough where it just becomes its own, it like generates its own feedback loop over a long period.
I think it's pretty symbolic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You become what you despise and what you hated.
That's
how am I not myself?
Yeah, how am I not myself? Yeah, for real.
How am I not myself?
But not to get too nerded out, which I certainly just did.
Dude, actually, I think you should nerd the fuck out. Like, that's fine. Do that.
That's what I think other people don't talk about. Is that kind of shit.
Let's give them something to talk about.
But I always like the end too, where, who was dragged down by the stone. Like it ultimately ends in who was dragged down by the stone. But like just the whole, like the whole phrasing there, like that kind of compares the dog to like the man's life.
Yeah. Well, it's cool too, because that Roger Waters, that's like his part,
Yes.
Like Gilmore sings, I think, kind of the first two sort of section areas, I guess what you'd say of the song, and then Waters comes in at the end, and he's doing kind of the comparison, and I love the, I don't know, analogous things that he kind of says of like the business person and the dog. It's kind of like they are.
No, I know.
They kind of are. Who was told what to do by the man who was fitted with a collar and chain, who was breaking away from the pack. Like there's a lot of cool stuff there for sure.
So then pigs.
I was gonna say, well, we gotta flip the record. So that's,
oh my God.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that would be the flip.
Yeah. And dude, yeah. Well, let me say, I saw there was like a cassette of this or something, and this is on the wiki page, and they like split up songs, and man, they did some weird stuff. So if you own this on cassette, I'm sorry. Like, it was like they split up Pigs into a part one and then a conclusion. Yeah, like the first 2.5 minutes of Pigs. That's weird. Yeah, nobody wants that. We want all the pigs. Pigs, 3 different ones, obviously. Again, another long song, but a great way to start side 2 because you have to start it some way.
Now I've played this in a band, like covered this song.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and I played the keyboard part. We actually used to do an interesting thing that we would call PDR, and it was Pigs into Dogs into Regulators by Warren G.
Oh, yeah.
So basically what we do is we'd play Pigs, and then instead of going into the solo section of Pigs, we'd go into that solo section of Dogs, right? Okay. And then you'd go into Regulators from there. But forget about that. One thing that always got me is I was thinking about playing the intro because you can hear the harmony in that you know? And I thought, my God, how does he play that? Like, is he doing all those thirds and going? Because that would be really hard to play. But the brilliant thing is the Hammond organ has these drawbars. And so I figured it out because I had a Hammond organ clone that I would play live. And so you can do like thirds, fifths, and all these other notes. But if you turn up the right drawbars, you get that sound, and then you just have to play the one note, but it plays the 2 notes because the third is just added in there.
That's cool.
So it makes it a lot easier. And then, after that, I'm like, I totally get how he plays this now.
Cool. It's very interesting.
Yeah. But I think this is also the only song where I've ever heard, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's the only song where I've ever heard them say the F word.
Dude, I got that in my notes. I was like, yeah, do they swear in all right, and that's a good fun little Pink Floyd.
Now they say bullshit in Dark Side of the Moon, so it's not the first time they swear.
Do they? When
in Money. Don't give me that do good bullshit.
Bullshit. Yep.
Yeah.
But
this is the first time they say the F word. And maybe the only time. They might in The Wall, but it's not quite as prominent.
Yeah, you're right. Interesting. Pop-up trivia.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this song is, again, there's 3 like epic songs.
Different ones.
This album. Yeah, 3 different ones. But dude, you were talking about the synth, man. The intros, it's got this real kind of mysterious feel to it, and then with the bass line, but the guitar comes in just kind of like real scratchy, and
I like how they break it up. That gives it a really nice texture.
There's like a hesitation there. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, this is like the song that's about the people who are on top, the people with power, the pigs. And it's kind of funny because it reminds me of, again, we just did the White Album not too long ago, and Piggies, which George Harrison wrote. And that's
I read that they were heavily influenced by that.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I would be.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But dude, there's also some cowbell in this motherfucker too. Like,
I was just gonna say, dude, really explore the space. They did
exploring it. I know Richard Wright, he doesn't get writing credit on any of these songs, but his synth playing on
his organ
stuff
playing
that he does on Dogs, dude, there's some really nice little piano parts and flourishes and things that he does on this track. Now it's not overly predominant in the song, but man, dude, it's excellent.
If you took him out of this album, it would sound like a half-ass fucking demo. It really would.
Yes.
And I thought about that because, I mean, dude, I've listened to this album probably hundreds of times, but I listened to it again today just because I wanted a fresh run through of it before we talked about it. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that stuck out to me is just the incredible keyboard work on it. The Rhodes in that dog solo, because I used to play the Rhodes in that dog solo, like when I would play, and I mean, just that everything. I mean, the Hammond intro for this song, like he has a way of using what was available to him, which, I mean, God, at that time couldn't have been a better fucking time to be a keyboard player, because nothing was fucking digital yet. Like, it was all like awesome analog shit, you know, and he used it all so well. Like, there were times where you're listening and, you know, my wife, Lisa, we were listening to her. She's like, well, what is that sound? And I'm like, oh, well, that's a synth, or I'm like, that's a Hammond organ. But I mean, some of them, they blend so well, it's hard to, you know, unless you're a real nerd about it, like me, it's hard to tell.
Dude, especially with Pink Floyd, I mean, the layers that they have in some of their songs and things, you know, they go glacial too.
And just the counterpoints. Like, I was going to mention that even in the dog solo, I love the part where he has like the two guitar harmonies in each side, and they're straight. And then after they play a lick, he hits that with the delay. I mean, like, it's brilliant.
Amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about the guitar playing on this song, my friend, which we got the talk box.
Oh, and, yeah, you do have the talk box.
And that really gives, you know, it kind of mimics the pig sound a little bit, which is really cool and symbolic. Like, it's, you know, I never, for some reason, I never really thought of it exactly like that, but it does. The wah, 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 wah.
Well, yeah. And, you know, the talk box it's funny because it's kind of like a vocoder in a way, but also in a way it's, you could almost say that it was like some sort of a predecessor to auto-tune. Because what you're doing is you have this box and it's taking your guitar signal, and dude, they actually have a tube in their mouth. On these old ones, you have a tube in your mouth and you're vocalizing those sounds as you're playing.
Dude, that's wild.
But it's always going to mimic the notes you're playing. It's going to match up with the notes. So that's where it kind of, you know, you could say like it's some sort of auto-tune predecessor because of that.
Is that what Frampton used?
Like, yes, I was just going to say. Yeah, dude, do you feel like we do?
Thing?
Yeah,
okay.
And Joe Walsh used it several times. I think there are other versions of the talk box. Beatles. Well, dude, but his solo shit's sweet, and the fucking James Gang. But I think at this point, all you had was the option for the tube in your mouth. I think now they make versions of a talk box that you can plug a mic into and do it that way. But at this point, it was gross. I mean, it was like a fucking beer bong tube that you stuck in your mouth to do it.
That's no fun for anyone.
But I mean, it was cutting edge, right, at the time. I mean, this was like cutting edge effects for guitars. Just like the same way when Disraeli Gears came out. I mean, dude, like the wah pedal was like, holy shit, you know?
Yeah, that's fucking tight, man.
Which is like 10 years earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think it just should also be noted because, actually, this album is coming out, or this episode is coming out on February 3rd. So guess what? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, the dude.
Guy right here. However, we are recording it this episode on another very important day, and that is January 20th, 2021. Now, today, we inaugurated a new president. And I think we should.
Thank God for that.
It should be noted that Roger Waters did not play this song live until one DT, little d, little t, became president. And in 2016, he was on a tour of the U.S. and Mexico. He started playing Pigs live, and he basically dedicated it to DT.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Little Donnie. And yeah,
His
so
little hands.
but you know, the production of, you know, these shows and everything, they would have like imagery and caricatures and everything and quotes by Trump, but basically the words "fuck Trump" and "Trump is a pig" would be shown on screens. So it would be displayed at the end of the song. So bye, Don.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And with that, we will move into sheep, because there were several of those who still
voted for him
to follow him.
Exactly.
So the one thing I would say that I like about, there's several things to like about it, but one thing is I like the driving beat.
There's definitely that, dude. Yep.
But I also like how at the beginning of a lot of the phrases, the initial drum hits to start it out are in reverse. I think that's cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I like how in the beginning and they do. I love how they incorporate, and I wouldn't say it's cliche, but they incorporate the sounds of the animals. But this has the birds, and you have the sheep and everything. Those sounds.
This is like the more natural sounds of them, which I think is cool.
It is. It's definitely more natural. And it just kind of, the bass just kind of lightly fades in the background. You got this nice synth playing. And again, Richard, what is,
I was just going to say, that was one thing that I read was kind of a point of contention on this, because the track starts out with Richard Wright unaccompanied on the Rhodes. Playing the Rhodes piano, and he does just a beautiful intro for the song. And one thing I like is I nerd again happen to have the suitcase version of the Rhodes, which has a stereo output, and you can do this like kind of ping pong vibrato, which if you listen to headphones, you can hear that he's using that because it's always, bouncing back and forth between the two ears.
That's tight.
But the playing is just fantastic, and he does not get credited writing credit for that either.
That's crazy, man. It's just like,
I know.
What bullshit. Is it? Like, if you write the lyrics, is that what gives you writing credit? Like, how does that even make sense, like, in a song?
Yeah.
Like,
I kind of feel like if there's any sort of collaboration, like...
Yeah.
Like, well, did Roger Waters say to Nick Mason, okay, like, this is the exact drum beat and the fills you have to play?
Yeah, right? I don't know.
I mean, come on.
Well, so here, there's interesting theory. Dude, so Gilmore is the one who plays bass on this song. Because Waters wanted to play, there's like a rhythm guitar part, and Waters wanted to play that, so they had Gilmore play the bass, and I think Gilmore played bass, I want to say on Pigs as well, don't quote me 100%, but basically on 2 out of the 3 like main songs of this album, what's his name, Gilmore played the bass, which is, I just found that to be interesting. Yeah. But again, Richard Wright shining through. Like, I feel like he doesn't get enough credit just as a Floyd member at all. And unfortunately, he's left us. He's passed away. But man, just an unbelievable talent. Just he's great, man. I mean, one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs is "Us and Them," which is like his work, and I just love it, man. It's so fucking good.
Can I ask you about something here, dude?
You can ask. Hopefully I got the answer.
Apparently there's this interlude where they do the stone, stone, stone thing, which you hear, which is cool.
Yep.
But then it says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me down to lie."
Yeah. So what that is, do you remember the section?
They're speaking in the vocoder.
It sounds like Soundwave from fucking Transformers. Yes. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Yes, those are the words that they're saying.
So hold on,
very interesting.
Just so that I'm clear, it says through quiet reflection and great dedication, master the art of karate. Lo, we shall rise up, and then we'll make the bugger's eyes water.
Yep. Yeah, and here's the thing, because of, it's through that, I don't know, through the talk box or the vocoder or whatever, it's you can't really understand. Like, I've never heard those words before, but they are transcribed as that. It is very interesting. And the way the people are talking, it sounds like, and this is kind of interesting, and not to offend any people who are part of organized religion out there, but the song is sheep, and it sounds like people in a church. Dude, I mean, we grew up in Catholic school. Think about when people are saying reciting like the Lord's Prayer, right? In
Where
church.
did I read this? He actually part of it contains a modified version of Psalm 23.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is the tradition of the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
Yeah.
Bit.
I mean, that's what it sounds like, dude. They sound like sheep talking. They're reciting without even thinking about what they're saying. That's the way I kind of pulled that.
I don't know how in the holy Christmas that they fucking transcribe that, for God's sakes.
I don't know either.
It is weird as shit, but okay, well, there we go.
Yeah. But essentially that's what this song is kind of about. It's
the sheep, and they eventually rise up past the dogs.
Right.
Once they learn karate. Oh, karate. Dirk would be very upset if he heard me say that.
Exactly. Dirk Diggler. Oh, he's so good.
So then after that madness, you go to Pigs on the Wing Part 2.
Pigs on the Wing Part 2.
Which, like you were saying, comes from the alternate perspective of, instead of saying this is what would happen if we weren't together, this is like what is happening because we are together.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. It's the same song. It's like the first part is like, if I didn't care, this is what would happen. Yeah. Part 2 is, that I care, so this is what's happening.
Now, I don't know what Pigs on the Wing are. I don't
It has to do with what's that? It's sort of like a play on when pigs will fly, like that kind of saying a little bit.
Okay,
so that's kind of where that comes from. But it does sound a little weird. Yeah,
it does. I was thinking it was a play on that. What's that old TV show that's like all out there and shit?
That's that give me a whole lot to go off of, dude.
But my parents always used to tell me about it. And there's like this guy who's on a plane, and he looks out and he sees like this monster on the wing, and he's just like,
it's an Alfred Hitchcock.
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone or Alfred Hitchcock. Okay.
Yeah, and he's like ripping the shrapnel off the wing, and this guy sees it like plain as day. He's like fucking freaking out. Yeah, and he's the only one who can see it.
Yeah. I dig it.
Anyways, that's where my mind went.
Well, I think actually, to me, it seems like the song would be better called like Pigs with Wings Part 1 instead of Pigs. I don't know. Maybe if that's kind of what the idea behind it was. I don't know.
But again, we didn't write the album or
we didn't.
do
in fact,
really
Roger
cool.
Waters is pretty much the only one who did anything with this album because he gets all the credit for it, right?
Yeah, apparently. I mean, he played all the fucking keyboard parts and wrote the drum parts too, so.
Come on, Roger.
Yeah, man, dude, credit where credit is due. Fuck.
Yes.
Anyways, time to scratch, dude. Ooh. It's your turn this time, buddy, because I scratched last.
What should we scratch with? Like a dog's tooth or something?
Yeah, houndstooth. Yeah, for sure.
Houndstooth. I like that. Well, this is a tough one, obviously, because there's 5 tracks. I mean, it's, and we've discussed this one before. So we both had a little insight. I wouldn't say cheating, but some insight into maybe where one of us could be leaning. and I have a hard time differentiating Pigs on the Wing Part 1 and Pigs on the Wing Part 2. I personally, I could scratch them both because I feel like if they weren't on the album and this whole idea and theme of the animals and things together,
but dude, this is like the fucking Highlander. There can only be one.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. I really don't know which one I would scratch of those two. It is one of those two. I guess I could say, I'll go with the first one.
That makes the most sense to me if that's where you're going.
Because I think, and Pink Floyd had done this before. One, if I just think about like where I start the album, I start the album with Dogs. I just do. Like that's how I start the album. And they had done it before for Pink Floyd. They had done it before where they had Echoes as like one whole side. So I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, just having like one song is like, hey, it's going to be this side. And then, and then you flip it over, you got Pigs and Sheep, and then you just do Pigs on the Wing Part 2. And that's just nice that's kind of like a funny, funky little way just to like end the album. So that's where I go there.
Hold up.
Yeah.
So it's a minute and whatever seconds, but when you start the album, you skip it?
Yeah, because why the fuck do I need, I don't even need to listen to it. Not on vinyl. If I'm listening to it on vinyl, no, I just listen to it. But if I have it on if I'm playing on my fucking iPhone or whatever, start with Dogs.
What the fuck is that shit?
Okay. Well, I think this is going to be a double what the fuck is that shit, because my scratch on this, and I know I'm glad I didn't say it when you were drinking your Truly there, because you'd probably spit it out. But
they're going to come out of my nose.
Yeah, I would scratch Sheep. And I know that's probably a sacrilege for some, but dude, I like Sheep. It's a good song, and I actually really like the piano intro to it.
Wait, hold up a second.
What the fuck is that shit?
Well, I'm trying to explain what's up with that shit, but I just, dude, I like the idea of the bookends, because whether they're important or to some or to all or not, I like the idea of some sort of commonality between the albums, and I sure as shit couldn't lose Dogs or Pigs, 3 different ones.
No.
What if I could I just keep the fucking intro for Sheep?
No, because here's the thing, man. One, you cut out Sheep, man. That cuts out such a huge fucking chunk of the album. 2, that also destroys the whole concept behind it. The whole concept is you have the Dogs, you got the Pigs, you got the Sheep. That's why I'm saying, dude, you can lose Pigs on the Wing Part 1 and 2, and that concept still remains.
I understand your point.
That's
you're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong.
You're goddamn right. I'm not wrong.
This is our concern, dude. Well,
this is the first album we have. I think we've both felt
we've got double what the fucks
about this. I just can't, man. I can't see cutting.
Dude, Sheep to me is just a little after the intro. It's a little repetitive. I mean, and fuck me, I get it, but I'm just saying it's a little repetitive for me.
It's repetitive when Pigs on the Wing Part 1 is basically the same fucking thing as Pigs on the Wing Part 2.
But it's, dude, 3 minutes. It's not like 8. And the lyrics are different, and it really ties the room together.
Fucking ties my ass together.
Well, just don't cauterize it shut.
Oh, that would be bad mostly for me.
Yeah, they talk about that in a Wu-Tang album, dude. Enter the 36 chambers, man.
Enter fucking Sandman.
And I'll just keep feeding you and keep feeding you.
Feed me. Well, Graham, I think that officially scratches Animals.
Yeah, so everyone, I'm scratched out after that one. That's a big
one. Please comment below. Please tell him how fucking ridiculous it is to scratch Sheep, which is like a third of the goddamn album. Like, you can't do it. It's a quarter of the album. It's fine. So, all right. We got some more Floyd. coming next year, probably. I don't know who.
Oh no, dude! They're coming in the sub episodes. There's more Floyd to be talking. But the albums will.
Yeah,
we never get bored of them because they're one of my top 3 favorite bands ever.
Yeah. So next year I'm a go.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. But let us know if there's a Pink Floyd album you guys would like us to scratch. We would like to
other
scratch
than the
it.
obvious ones, because come on, we're getting to those.
Yeah, we're getting to those. And if you haven't listened to Dark Side, we scratched that one. That was our probably second scratch after Abbey Road. So,
yeah, it was.
So check it out.
Very tough one.
So tough. All right, people. All right, friends.
Until
next time. It's time to go. Big Grimm Show.
Scratch a Track is produced by the Dude and Grimm. Additional music provided by More in the Tims. Copyright 2021. The Dude and Grimm Show.